الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, to proceed, to continue our analysis of the story of Ibraaheem عليه الصلاة والسلام. So the point that we arrived upon or concluded in our last lesson, the next sentence is وَكَانَ آزَرُ وَكَانَ آزَرُ يغضب ولا يفهم يغضب ولا يفهم. So first of all, وَكَانَ آزَرُ يَغْضَبُ وَلَا يَفْهَمُ. What does that mean? يَعْلَمُ الْحَقِّ. وَكَانَ آزَرُ يَغْضَبُ.
Azar used to, and Azar used to, or was.
يَغْضَبُ غَضِبَ يَغْضَبُ مغضوب. What does it mean? غير المغضوب.
Maghdub means those went wrong.
No, that's a darleen. That's a darleen bit. يغضب. Right. So غضب غضب غضب. The opposite of غضب is صعد. صعد. This is the first sentence, Ya Shabaz. وَكَانَ عَزُرُ يَغْضَبُ وَلَا يَفْهَمُ. Right? So what does that verb غَضِبَ, present tense al-mudari, what does غَضِبَ mean? He was angry. He became angry. غَضِبَ is he became angry. The opposite of غَضِبَ is صَعِدَ.
Happy.
He became, or he was happy. Right? So the present tense of غَضِبَ is يَغْضَبُ. يَغْضَبُ. وَكَانَ آزَرُ يَغْضَبُ. So what does it mean therefore? وَكَانَ آزَرُ يَغْضَبُ. Ya Shabazu.
Azar, he became, he used to be angry.
Right, he used to become angry.
Yeah.
Remember, because what's happening? His son Ibraaheem عليه السلام is arguing with his people, refuting their worshipping of the idols. So his father كان آزر يغضب ولا يفهم. So finally, after all our discussion, we have يفهم, the verb. So the past tense of يفهم is فهم. Right? فهم. فهم means
He knew.
not he knew. When we say هل فهمتما or هل فهمتم,
Do you know?
no, not know.
Understood.
Understand or understood. Fahima means
He understood.
he understood. Remember, we use fahima, don't we?
Yeah.
When we explain the purpose of the fa. This is one instance where the verb beginning with fa, is that part of the verb or is it an addition?
No, it's part of
It's part of the verb, isn't it? Fahima. He understood. So how do we say we understood?
Fahimana.
Fahimna. Right? So if I ask you a question, هل أنتم فهمتم? You say
We fahimna.
فهمنا.
Naam, fahimna.
نعم فهمنا or لا ما فهمنا. Right? But this is the present tense. ولا يفهموا. And لا يفهموا, he did not understand. Right? So the meaning of it is كان آزر يغضب ولا يفهم. Azar used to become angry and he did not understand. Our jumla that begins with kana, and therefore we have our ismu kana, which is azaru, and our khabaru kana, which is the remainder. Right? Just one note regarding yaghdabu. If you're going to say I became angry with somebody or about something, you have to use the an. So you would say, if you wanted to say I became angry with him, you would say غضبت عنه. عنه. I became angry with him. Or غضبت به. Okay. So that's how you'd express becoming angry with someone or something. But if you just said غضبت, it just means I became angry.
Could be anything. Yeah.
Yes. Right? So here it's left general because that's the meaning that we're trying to convey, that he just became angry. But we know it's referring back to what preceded. Right, so the next sentence is كان آزر يغضب ولا يفهم وكان إبراهيم ينسه لقومه. وكان إبراهيم وكان إبراهيم ينسه لقومه. ينسه لقومه. Right, وكان إبراهيم on the meme يا شباب, what do we place?
What is the fish?
A dhamma. Because it's our ismu kana. Right, and then we have yansahu liqawmihi, which will be the khabaru kana. So what does it mean? Yansahu liqawmihi. The verb here.
Yansahu means giving da'wah, nasiha.
Right. And nasihatu, which is advice.
Advice, yeah.
Right? Yansahu is he advised.
He advised, yeah.
His
Okay? لِقَوْمِهِ.
His follower, or his people.
Right? لِقَوْمِهِ. We have a harfu jar. Right? Okay? Is that clear? We have a harfu jar, that's a li.
Yeah.
So qawmun, which is, what does qawmun mean?
Follower or
People.
people.
Qawmun is people. The plural of qawmun is aqwamun. Right? It's important that because it's frequently used. Aqwamun.
I think I've asked this before, but there's not a pattern to going from singular to plural.
No.
It's you just have to
Yes.
know the word, right?
Yeah.
So qawmun and aqwamun. Right? But that particular pattern, aqwamun, what's the plural of babun?
Is it abwabun?
Abwabun. The plural of nahrun, a river, is anharun. Okay? The plural of jaddun, a grandfather, is Ajdadun. Right? And so on and so, I mean, there's lots. Arhaman. So you become familiar after a while what the plural is after you've seen it. And you associate it with other plurals and you group them together in your own mind. So لِقَوْمِهِ meaning his right, to his people. قَوْمِهِ يَنْسَهُ لِقَوْمِهِ. So what does it all mean, Ya Shabazu? وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَنْسَهُ لِقَوْمِهِ.
Ibrahim used to give advice to his people.
Right. He used to advise his people. وَكَانَ النَّاسُ يغضبون ولا يفهمون. وَكَانَ النَّاسُ يَغْضَبُونَ وَلَا يَفْهَمُونَ. Right, so we should now know what this means based upon the earlier sentence. Right? يعني ملحق ما معنى وَكَانَ النَّاسُ يَغْضَبُونَ وَلَا يَفْهَمُونَ.
The people didn't listen, understand.
No, we've done يَغْضَبُونَ, it's here.
Angry.
The people became angry and
وَلَا يَفْهَمُونَ. It's here. وَلَا يَفْهَمُوا.
Understood.
and didn't understand. Is that what it is?
And didn't understand. Right? وَكَانَ النَّاسُ يَغْضَبُونَ. So the people used to become angry. وَلَا يَفْهَمُونَ.
And they didn't.
And did not understand. So why, therefore, do we have يَغْضَبُونَ here in this sentence, and which is plural, masculine, third person, and we have يَغْضَبُ, which is singular, masculine, third person here, and يَفْهَمُ, singular here, and يَفْهَمُونَ, plural here.
We're referring to Azaru there, we're referring to the people here. No?
Right, because Azaru here is singular, and An-Nasu is plural. So remember that our fi'lun has to match the subject that it's referring to.
Yeah.
Right? Once the subject's already been mentioned. Right? Because it has been mentioned here, An-Nasu. Right? So يَغْضَبُونَ has to be plural to match An-Nasu. The singular of An-Nasu is?
An-Nas.
The singular of An-Nasu, we know. What do you call a single person? Al-Insan. Al-Insanu.
Al-Insan, yeah.
Right? Al-Insanu is singular, An-Nasu is plural. Right? Shabazz? And look confused.
Qawm we said was the people.
Qawm, yeah, An-Nasu is the people too. It's just another word for the people.
Yeah. Yeah, you Nas.
Okay? Is that clear?
Yeah.
So if we wanted to say, for example, because it's very important that with the animal stories, a lot of the phrases, you could easily extract them and use them. You know, and you could alter certain words and formulate your own sentences very quickly. With these stories, and with the text in these stories, the language and the style is slightly more difficult and obscure. So it doesn't lend itself as easily to creating your own sentences. For example, you now have to construct a sentence that has the verb غضب in it and فهم. Well, فهم is quite easy, right? So you could say, for example, I attended the lesson and I understood it. How would we say that? I attended the lesson and I understood it. I attended is
حضرت.
حضرت. حضرت
درس.
الدر. No, not الدرس يا الملحق.
الدرس.
We know this, we've been doing it. حضرت الدرس. It's, what do we place on the scene?
درس.
الدرس. حضرت
درس.
الدرس
وفهمت.
وفهمت and I understood it. وفهمت.
فهمتها.
Well, which ضمير متصل are we going to use now?
It, ha.
Because it's in the past, I understood it.
Right, so we know we have to say what? فهمت and I understood it. So it's going to be وفهمت.
Ha.
Ha.
Yeah, but if you're going to say ha, what does the ha refer to?
The lesson.
But الدرس, is that male or female?
Oh, is a male.
Male, so therefore you're going to say
Who?
who. وفهمته.
How
So I became happy. So or then.
So far.
Fa, good ya Shabazz. Fa.
سعيد.
Sa'id. Remember I wrote it on the board. Sa'id. Sa'idtu. Yeah. Sa'idtu. حضرت الدرس وفهمته فسئدت. Right, ya Shabazz? It's very important that we make our own sentences, otherwise we're going to forget. Isn't it? Right? And what if we wanted to say, I attended the lesson and I didn't understand it, so I became angry. How do we change it?
The lessons with the hadartu and darsa is this.
Hadartu and darsa is going to be the same.
Wala. And I didn't.
But now remember how we're going to negate it. What?
La.
La. Remember the different way. Think about the different ways of negation. We have here a fi'l al-madi. How do we negate a fi'l al-madi?
Ma.
With the ma. Wa ma fahimtuhu. What? Ma fahimtuhu. And then we're going to say
Became angry.
fa.
Yeah.
Fagadibtu. So I became angry. Fa. Gadibtu. Gadibtu. Right? So that now we're just saying, so I became angry, and that's a general, we're leaving it at that point. But if I want to say I became angry with it, فَغَدِبْتُ bihi.
Yeah, with it.
Right? So always, when you're reading these texts, particularly when you're learning, once you've mastered it, then you don't need to challenge yourself and ask yourself, well, how would I change it? Because you know. But when you're learning, don't enter into the comfort zone of understanding what it means, but not being able to change it. Because it's a false sense of comfort. Because you're not really progressing as you ought to do. Right? Then the next sentence, قال إبراهيم أنا أقصر الأصنام. قال إبراهيم. Right. So the next sentence begins with the verb قال. And what does قال mean, Ya Shabazu? Good. He said. قال إبراهيم. Okay. أنا أقصر السلام إذا ذهب الناس. Right. قال إبراهيم, we know what that means.
Ibrahim said.
Ibrahim said. وحينئذ يفهم الناس. Right, there's another bit, but we'll just do this first. Ibrahim said. If you want to say I said, it is I said. قلت. You said single male. قلت. We said. قلنا. They said plural male. قالوا. Right. They said dual male. Yani Mulhaq used to know these a few weeks ago. قالا. Right. We shouldn't forget things like this. قال إبراهيم. Okay. If this was a female, let's say it was Maryamu, then how would we say it? قالت. Maryamu. Right. قال إبراهيم أنا. I
broke the idol.
أكسر الأصنام. Right. What do we place on the meme here? أنا أكسر الأصنام. Because it's the object. Good. It's a مفعول به. أنا أكسر الأصنام إذا is ظرف الزمان. When. إذا ذهب الناس. What do we place on the scene? إذا ذهب الناس. Is it going to be a nasu, a nasa, nasi?
A nasa.
Why a nasa, ya shabazu?
They're the people who left. Is Zahaba, he left?
Yeah.
Yes. Right, well, right. What does it mean first of all? قال إبراهيم, we know. أنا أكسر الأصنام.
I broke the idols.
Not I broke.
Ana
is I, but أكسر is not I broke. Because I broke is past.
I will break.
The past tense of this is كسر.
That's the base one, yeah.
كسر. He broke. كسرت. I broke. كسرنا. We broke. كسرتما. You two broke. So it's not I broke, is it? It's I will break. أكسر. I will break. He will break his, or he breaks his. He. يكسر. We will break. نكسر. Right? I will break الأصنام.
The idol.
إذا. When. ذهب الناس.
The people went.
The people have gone. So therefore الناس is. What's the i'rab of الناس? What's the grammatical state?
Nasa.
Why a nasa?
So they're the people we're talking about, they're the file.
Right, ya Shabazz, it's the file, and nasu is the file. Right?
You always don't give them a
وحينئذ وحينئذ يفهم الناس الناس. And that's the same, right? وحينئذ يفهم الناس. Right, so first of all, in this sentence we have إذا, and إذا is what we call أداة الشرط. What does أداة الشرط mean? It is a tool for a condition. There's a type of construct in Arabic which is a condition, right, or is introduced by a condition, just like in English, a conditional sentence, right? If you attend the lesson, you will understand, right? There's a condition. Similarly, in Arabic, you have what we call al-jumlatu sharatiyya, a conditional sentence. But the conditional sentence is not different from either a jumlatul fi'liyya or a jumlatul ismiyya. It just depends what type of sentence the condition enters upon. So, in our example here, right, there's three parts to a jumlatul sharatiyya, or two parts depending upon whose explanation you follow. The first is what you call adatu shart. Adatu shart, which means the shart. Adatu sharati is the tool of the condition. Right? When we said the tool, we're talking about the word. Right? So in this instance, it's إذا. Right? Then we have what we call the fi'l shart. The fi'l shart is the part of what follows the actual condition. For example, إذا حضرت الدرس. إذا حضرت الدرس. Right? إذا حضرت الدرس. If you attend الدرس. Okay? So we have adatu sharat, then we have the actual fi'l, the action. Okay, that's the action, attending the lesson. Right? When we say fi'l, we don't mean a single verb.
Right.
We mean the action in general, attending the lesson. Right? Now, some grammarians, they say all of this bit is the shart, is a condition. All of it. If إذا حضرت الدرس, they say all of it is, right? We just separated it out. Why? Because there are a number of adawat shart, words that will introduce a conditional sentence. Like, we're not going to do them all, that's a separate lesson. Low and in, and then there are a number of others, right? You probably encountered these in Al-Quran, right? Idha, low, in, etc. So, that's why they separate it. But, if you take إذا حضرت الدرس as our condition, then we have what? جواب الشرط. The جواب الشرط is, as its name suggests, the response. Right? إذا حضرت الدرس, if you attended the lesson, but I'll mention that point in a minute. For now, we'll understand it to mean if you attend the lesson, what happens?
You learn.
Right. تعلمت. Or we'll just use فهمت. فهمت. إذا حضرت الدرس فهمت. Now, there are a number of rules regarding al-jumla الشرطية, and that's for a separate lesson. But the reason why we mention this here is because we have our condition. Except that there's something different about this example to the one in the text. And that's interesting, isn't it? Why? Because if you look here, we have our adatu shart idha. We have idha. We have our fi'l hadarta adarsa. Right? But and that comes after idha.
No.
Right? That comes after idha, which is here. In our sentence or in the text we have dhahaba an-nasu, the people have gone. Right? When the people have gone, hadarta darsa, you attend the lesson. Right? Then we have jawab or jawab al-shart, which is a response. Fahimta, you understand. But what is jawab al-shart in this sentence? Ya Namul Haq. Think about it, read it. قال إبراهيم أنا أكسر الأصنام إذا ذهب الناس.
I will break the idols.
Yeah, but the first part is the short.
Right.
The first part.
It's أنا أكسر الأصنام, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's أنا أكسر الأصنام. So if we were to fit these three parts into here, the adatu sharti would be إذا. The dhahaba an-nas would be the fi'l, the action, and our jawab al-shart will be ana aksir al-asnama. Right? We understand?
Yeah.
Fahimtuma? So, but the interesting bit is actually, although, we'll write it here, although إذا ذهب الناس is the shart of the jumla, إذا ذهب الناس, the jawab that we all assume to be أنا أكسر الأصنام isn't actually the jawab. Because amongst the majority of the grammarians, this is the interesting bit, amongst the majority of the grammarians, you cannot bring forward the jawab and delay the fi'l. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, so the jawab can't be behind the fi'l, right?
In front. First. It's brought forward, isn't it? It's preceded إذا ذهب الناس. And amongst the majority, you cannot do that. And minorities say you can. So if you take the opinion of the minority, what do we say? We say that أنا أكسر الأصنام is the jawab al-shart. And we say ذهب الناس is the fi'l of the shart. And we say إذا is adatu al-shart.
No.
But that's a minority opinion. Amongst the jumhur, the majority, they say that إذا is adatu al-shart, ذهب الناس is the fi'l, but where is the jawab therefore? Let's see how much that you've understood of that bit, which is a bit more complicated in grammar. Where must be the jawab al-shart?
If it has to be present, then it must be after it.
But where is it? Because wahina idhin just means, and at that point or at that time, yafhamu an-nasu means
The people didn't understand. Yeah.
no, yafhamu an-nasu, not that they didn't understand,
They did. Sorry.
they
Are understanding.
will understand. They will understand. Yafhamu an-nasu, right? There's no negation. So the point is, where is, according to the opinion of the majority, the jawab of the shart in this sentence?
It will be that. It will be the rest. Well, not the rest of it, but yafhamu an-nasu.
No.
Will understand.
We've moved on now to the next sentence.
What next sentence?
Wahina idhin yafhamu an-nasu.
Sentence.
And the sentence after that.
Yeah, we moved on now.
Oh.
Actually, the response to this question is easy. What's that principle of grammar where it's supposed to be there but it isn't?
Is
Mahdhoof. What does mahdhoof mean? Erased.
What is it?
It's erased, it's not there. Remember, we've encountered this before, many times,
Yeah, like
right? It's erased. He's looking away. So when something's been erased, right, what do we say about it? We say
assume.
it's assumed to be there, and it's assumed to be ana aksirul asnama, which is where it might seem a bit strange that why therefore not just say that is the jawab al-shart, because amongst the majority, as I said, you cannot advance the jawab and delay the fi'l and the shart. Now, that point is important to remember, because the more advanced we become, the more common you will find this. Words and phrases are not there, but are assumed to be there. Right? Like the simple example of that is the ayah وَقَالَ لَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ نَاقَةَ اللَّهِ وَسُقْيَاهَا. Remember that example? قَالَ لَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ نَاقَةَ اللَّهِ نَاقَةَ اللَّهِ. Right? So, قَالَ لَهُمْ, what does قَالَ لَهُمْ mean?
They said to him.
No, not they said. قَالَ لَهُمْ,
He said to them.
he said to them. This is speaking about Salih alayhi السلام, who was sent to the people of Thamud. And the test for the people of Thamud was the she-camel of Allah, Naqatullahi. A she-camel that they were told to leave it and allow it to roam and graze wherever it wanted, and not to mutilate it by cutting its ears. Right? قَالَ لَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. So who's the fa'ilun here?
The people.
There is no people here, Ya Shabazu. It's Rasulullahi. Rasulullahi, the messenger of Allah, meaning Salih alayhi salam. So the Rasul said to them, i.e. the people, he said to them, Naqatallahi. He said to them, Naka tallahi. That is mansubun. Why is it mansubun? You can read that ayah 1,000 times and you will not understand why it is mansubun, except if you imply a word here. What type of word would we have to imply or assume that it is there? Naqatallahi means the she camel of Allah, but it is mansubun. In order for it to be mansubun, we've now looked at a number of words that would render an ismun mansubun. The most common being?
Anna. No.
Sorry? Ya Shabaz, what would make an ismun mansubun?
In most cases, it is maf'ulun bihi.
If it's a maf'ulun bihi.
Yeah.
And it becomes a maf'ulun bihi by?
Yeah, fa'ilun.
By? We know this. By a
Verb.
verb.
Yeah. Fi'lan, yeah.
Right? So, the grammarians and the scholars of tafsir said that the missing verb here is dharu. Dharu, which is a command form. Dharu means you, plural, leave. You, plural, leave. Leave what? Naqatallahi. Now can you see why it's correct for naqata to be mansubun? Ya Shabaz.
Isn't there already that sentence there though? Because there's already a fi'lun, a fa'ilun, and that's a maf'ulun bihi anyway, isn't it? The fi'lun is the he said. No, it's not. Because the qala here, the object of the qala is not naqa. I know why you think it's that, but it's not. Qala has a special rule relating to it. We better not mention it because it will further confuse you, right? But no, it's not mansubun in that way that you think it will be by just placing a fatha on it, right? But knowing that now, after that, what is it in the ayah that would correctly render naqata mansubun? Well, it's another verb that's not there. So in fact, what the ayah means is that the Messenger of Allah said to them, leave what? Whatever is the object of leave is going to be mansubun. Dharu naqatallahi. So the fi'lun, which is mahdhuf, is taqdiruhu, as you say in grammar, taqdiruhu dharu. It's assumed to be dharu, leave. And then if you read that ayah, right, you'll see that that is mansubun.
Yeah.
Okay, you read it 1,000 times, it's always mansubun. Why? Because it's the object, it's a maf'ulun bihi of a verb which is not there. So now the next question that enters into your mind is?
In my mind is, how have we decided that it's...
Exactly, how have we concluded that it's going to be that verb, dharu? Right? Out of all the af'al that we could have, all the verbs, why settle upon dharu? Because,
Match with the context.
well, first of all, it matches with the context, but even that's not sufficient as an explanation. It's because we have another ayah in which Salih, alayhi salam, in Surah Hud said,
هذه ناقة الله ذروها تأكل في أرض الله ولا تمسوها بسوء. When Saleh alayhi salam said that this is هذه ناقة الله, leave it, ذروها, leave it, تأكل في أرض الله, so it can eat in the earth of Allah, and do not touch it with evil. I do not harm it in any way. So we have another ayah where that verb is there, and he's saying it in reference to the camel, to leave it. So it's assumed here to be the same verb. You're happy now, Shabbat?
Yeah.
So it's not that you just think of a random verb, but there will be that one of the principles of tafsir, usul al-tafsir, is that the first means of deriving an understanding of an ayah is to look at the other ayat that relate to the same subject. But why did we mention all of this? To illustrate this point, which admittedly might seem slightly abstract and complex, but just to explain that here, إِذَا ذَهَبَ النَّاسُ, then amongst the majority opinion, the jawab al-shart that should come here is not there, but it's assumed to be this, أَنَا أَقْصِرُ الْأَسْنَامَ, even though it's already been mentioned. Right? وَحِينَئِذٍ, and at that point, Hina idhin comprises of Hina plus idh. What does Hina mean? It's a dharf. Dharfu al-makani and dharfu al-zamani. Which one?
Makan.
Not makani. Remember, what does the sentence mean? Wahina idhin yafhamu an-nasu.
At that point,
Right, read it to Yashabasam Qala and translate it.
Ibraaheem
Qala Ibraheemu.
Ibraaheem said, I will break the idols when the people have left, and at that point they will understand.
Not they will understand.
People.
The people.
The people will understand. At that point, the people will understand. Right? Hina therefore means
Time.
yeah, it relates to a period of time. Okay? Time when. Hina is dharfu zamani. Idh means when. Right? We've mentioned this before, haven't we? How many ayat start with idh?
Yeah, well, he's got like.
Right? And even there, that was another example, remember? Idh. Idh is dharf. Right? It's assumed to be mansubun. مفعول به بفعل محذوف. It's a mansubun, it's a مفعول به of a fi'l, of a verb which is mahdhuf. Which verb is it that we say is missing, that should be there? And Mulhaq, you were there in that lesson. Udhkur. Right now, udhkur. Right. Udhkur means remember. Remember what? Remember when. Right? All those ayat where Allah begins with وَإِذْ قَالَ and so on and so forth, وَإِذْ أَنْتُمْ, all of them, it's assumed that there's udhkur before it. Right? That might seem strange, but it's not really, is it? I say to you, and remember that lesson when we studied the maf'ulun bihi, and remember that lesson when we studied the fa'ilun, and remember, and now I'm not mentioning Rather than saying, and remember, and when, and when, and when. And I don't mention what? Remember. Why? Because I've already mentioned it. And it's not necessary. But it's assumed, isn't it? When I address you, and when, that you assume I mean, and remember when. And it's the same here. And it's one of the styles of Al-Quran where Allah Azza wa Jalla did not use something that it wasn't necessary because it was already been mentioned, which makes it unique. Another reason why it's unique. But here, time, hina, time when. When you attach hina plus idh, it becomes hina idhin. Hina idhin. Actually, that's hamza there. Hina idhin. Hina idhin. So the idh attaches to hina and it becomes idhin. It takes a tanween. Tanweenu kasrin as a substitute for being majzoom. Right? وحينئذ يفهم الناس. You look concerned, Ya Shabazz.
No, so good.
But as I mentioned, the rest of the story, it doesn't particularly become more difficult than this. The style and the expression and the words used are repeated. So from now on, inshallah, we should be able to analyze the text quicker.
Inshallah.
But at the same time, as I mentioned, that shouldn't be a reason for you just to assume that then you understand, without you practicing the words, the verbs or the asma or the nouns that you've learned.